Welcome to part 2 of our interview with healthcare veteran and founder of Folx Health, A.G. Breitenstein.
My mom was a researcher at Yale, and so I grew up like literally under her science bench, trying to be a little science nerd, and figured out I couldn't do science, and so went to law school, went to Boston to try to fix healthcare, started a nonprofit for queer and trans kids on the streets of Boston. It was 1994, and it was the height of the HIV crisis.
AG continued to work with the Legal Service Organization to improve the livelihoods of homeless LGBTQ+ people for 5 years. But she soon realized that the only way to fix it was from the inside.
Just felt like the healthcare system itself was broken fundamentally for this community at just so many levels. Didn't know how to, work with young people, didn't know how to, certainly didn't know how to work with the queer and trans community, and then was fundamentally broken for everyone in a lot of other ways.
So she went to Harvard University School of Public Health to get her master's degree.
There was like, well, exactly how many queer and trans people are there in the world? And we were always like, we don't know.
If her team wanted resources and funding, they needed to retrieve the proper data. After receiving her degree, AG started another nonprofit, followed by another for-profit business.
All trying to figure out how do we get like just numbers and data and information to sort of say what's the magnitude of the problem. And it was through that I learned a bunch of stuff. I learned how to, start businesses, which I think if we think about our community and we think about making real change in the world, understanding the levers of power in this country is really, really important. And particularly, it's all about following the money. Where's the money going? Who's spending the money? Who controls the money? And if you follow that equation, you figure out why systems look the way they look and how they function the way they function. And in healthcare, the reason healthcare sucks is because, we have doctors that get paid by insurance companies that get paid by the government. And nowhere in that equation is the person and what they need and what they want. And so the system keeps talking about, the patient's the center of it all. And we're all, we're really concerned about the patient. And when you really peel it back and you say, well, actually, when the people who pay the bills say jump, the whole rest of the system says how high. Going to public health school, building these companies, working within the healthcare system, I got to peel open their whole engine and really look inside and say, oh, wow, this is why the system is broken, is because we are not anywhere close to the center of the levers of power. And so that really was the very long, Homeric journey through healthcare to sort of come back and say, all right, the only way we're going to build something that works for this community is if we control the money. And if we do something that allows, we make it affordable for a person to pay out of pocket, and then we can just dismiss government regulators and, insurance company functionaries and who keep saying, we're not going to cover this because it's an elected procedure. You're choosing this. And so we're not going to cover it, which is, what the vast majority of folks for a long time with HRT got told. So doing that so that we take control. And I know that's very abstract, but it turns out it's very true. If we take control of the situation, then we get something that looks like, feels like, and reflects us. And that's the only way. That's the only way. Otherwise, you're asking somebody else to do it for you. And unless they care about what you want, in healthcare, it's not going to happen.
HRT is a hormone replacement therapy.
Estrogen and testosterone are therapeutic for folks at all kinds of stages of life.
It can be used to treat menopausal symptoms in women by replacing hormones that are at a lower level.
Human hormones are good things for most people, depending on where you are in life and what's going on. So keeping those in balance is always a really good thing.
But HRT is also used to help trans or gender nonconforming individuals align their bodies with their gender identity. AG calls this a life-giving therapy. But as we've said before, the queer community doesn't always have the best luck when it comes to finding good healthcare.
Then you have, 7% of LGBT people, and 22% of trans people reporting being, shown the door, actively discriminated against, and some even physically assaulted.
Even for AG, who is white, who understands the healthcare system, and who lives in Boston, Massachusetts, a fairly liberal state, seeking healthcare still has its challenges.
I remember I went to a particular appointment, and I have a lot of tattoos. I do not present as female, or I'm very non-binary in my presentation. And the woman who came in literally treated me like a germ. Like, she did not know what to do with my body. She was draping me with two fingers as though I was covered in something, and she was clearly not okay with me and not okay with how I looked. And I just stared her down because I'm kind of that way. But it was, you really know when someone just is just disgusted, and I could feel what she felt. And it's awful. It's horrible. And, in certain circumstances, that's the best you can hope for. Just rampant ignorance. I mean, just the dumbest questions by people who are are you on birth control? No. Are you sexually active? Yes. And then, they're like, well, do I need to? And I'm like, no, figure it out. What would be the next question to this?
It's extremely frustrating and discouraging. Queer individuals struggle to find someone that understands their specific situation and is willing to help them access the care they need.
And that was the genesis of Folx, are saying, we need to do this by us, for us. It needs to be a healthcare platform that is, queer and trans competent practitioners. It needs to be people who don't just accept our lifestyle, because to me, that's not enough. I want for this community, for us to be seen. I want us to be heard, and I want us to be celebrated. We should not be just tolerated. That's not good enough for us.
AG says a lot of this mistreatment is rooted in our history, and she breaks it down into two facts that shape how the LGBTQ+ community is treated even to this day.
One, there's historical backdrop to this that's really important to consider, and there's two pieces of it. One, the HIV pandemic in this country put the whole queer and trans community into a bucket of risky, right? And, you people do risky things, right? That's the best we get. And so that feeling is still tracking with this community. And then if you go back even further, right, the roots of the healthcare system and hospitals actually trace back to the church. And the vast majority of hospitals in this country still today are run by religious organizations. And so there has always been a backdrop of health being tied to morality. And we fall well out of that, and always have. And so, then our health becomes our fault. And we are, by definition, therefore immoral. So there's a really deep current under all of these experiences that isn't just the typical homophobia and transphobia that we're actually used to dealing with on a regular basis. In healthcare, it's even deeper.
So now, let's talk about Folx, the healthcare platform AG created for the queer community. She made it available online, which is convenient during the pandemic, but that's not why she chose to go virtual.
We can meet most folks where they want to get most things today. We get everything on our phones and our computers. Healthcare should be no different. And we can do a ton of things virtually without ever being in person.
By making these services available online, they're able to provide care to people all over the country.
We're still getting licensed, but we're already in 33 states. We have a lot more to go, but we can do that in all 50 states, and that's a huge thing.
And the best part is, they actively work to make it affordable.
Particularly for folks, a lot of whom in our community don't have insurance, so can make it affordable at a self-pay. Now, I am by no means deluding myself into thinking that what we do is cheap. It's not cheap, but certainly not. It's not going to be $5,000 to walk into a doctor's office, which it is in certain places for certain things. So trying to make things affordable at a self-pay rate. What that does is it allows us to build a queer and trans competent practitioner network. And that's the center of what we do. So that when you see somebody on a telehealth visit or, on an asynchronous chat or whatever, you're talking to somebody who doesn't just, quote, tolerate you, but knows you, is part of this community, works with this community every single day, and isn't going to ask you stupid questions, isn't going to judge you, and is going to, the kind of watchwords of the company are see, hear, and celebrate you. We're going to see you, we are going to hear you, and we are going to celebrate you.
AG's mission is to provide the services that the healthcare system refuses to prioritize, like HRT and PrEP, also known as pre-exposure prophylaxis, which is a medication used to prevent HIV.
We knew that for the trans community, this is the thing that it is just so hard to find somebody who knows what they're doing, get access to them, get access to the therapies, and get it reliably. We talked to hundreds of people who would tell us, it took me years to find a provider. I finally found them. I started therapy and then they moved. And then I was back to square one. So we wanted to build something, again, that would see you, hear you, celebrate you, and then be here for you. Day in and day out. And that was crucial. And then would do it for you beautifully. We actually send the medications to the home. We repackage them in a beautiful bottle or box. And that's for a reason. It's because this should be a moment of celebration. It shouldn't be, all of healthcare, generally looks bad, smells bad, and feels bad. And it doesn't have to. So again, let's make it something that's really enjoyable and change the whole experience end to end.
This service is essential for people who live in less progressive areas or rural parts of the country where access to this healthcare is scarce.
Where access to any healthcare is actually difficult, but access to queer and trans competent healthcare, the people that we talk to, it's 3, 4, 5 hours away at best. And most of them just avoid it entirely.
But AG says even in progressive cities like Los Angeles and Boston, finding queer healthcare is time consuming.
It's a 6-week wait to get even into the, queer and trans health centers in Boston and LA. So it is true that there is more in the cities, but we pay in other ways. We may pay by waiting. We may pay just by, again, people do move around. So yeah, the healthcare system, there isn't enough primary care in the whole country for anybody.
If there was an outcome that you hope comes from it, what is that outcome?
I hope that we create an entirely new experience for people in healthcare in a way that just makes them feel joyful. And that we finally put healthcare totally and completely in the hands of the person so that it serves their goals for their life and their health and their body. If we can do that, and we can do that in a way that makes them feel joyful, I think we will have transformed the experience. Because like I said, when we think about most people's experience of healthcare is they go to the doctor and they get told they're not going to die. That's like the best outcome is either we can fix this thing you have or you're not going to die from what you have. Like that's your best day. And it's usually, smelly and weird and you wear, paper Johnny and all this sort of stuff. So that's the best. If we can actually make healthcare like a joyful moment and we can put it in service of people so that they're like, oh, this is going to help me be and become and feel fully myself and fully embodied and, support me in that and see me and celebrate me, that to me is going to be, is the best thing we could possibly do.
Where can everyone learn more?
Folxhealth.com, FOLX health.com.
And where can people connect with you? Is there anywhere that they can, stay up to date on all the things you're doing?
Follow us on our Instagram. We are all over the place there, and I make an appearance there as well. And the whole team. You can see all of our practitioners. You can see the whole crew. So, we're all there.
Thanks for watching. Pride is a production of Straw Hut Media. If you like the show, do me a favor and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter @Pride. And tune in weekly for new episodes featuring amazing queer people. Be sure to share this episode with your friends and subscribe to our podcast too. You can follow me @Levi Chambers. Pride is produced by me, Levi Chambers, Maggie Bowles, Ryan Tillotson, and Caitlin McDaniel. Edited by Sebastian Alcala and Daniel Ferreira. Sound mixing by Sebastian Alcala. People who I think will benefit from this a lot, and I'm probably wrong in this. My cat wants in the bedroom. Hold on. She's a nightmare. She's got behavioral issues. So I just have to cater to her. Sorry. She's one of my bottle babies. So like when she wants in, she was jumping up on the door. Like over. Oh my God.
No, I have a pit bull that does the same thing.
Straw Hut Media.